Welcome to Customer Service Academy Radio with author and customer experience expert Tony Johnson. Tony will share his vision for successful customer service, leadership, and business excellence, and speak to some of the most impactful leaders in business today. And now, here's Tony Johnson.
Hello everybody, Customer Service Academy is on the air. I'm Tony Johnson, your customer experience speaker, consultant, and trainer. Today's episode coming to you courtesy of Ignite Your Service Training and Consulting and 4XI Global Consulting and Solutions. Truly better together. Folks, if you haven't checked out our latest report, this is a humdinger, a great report on the latest and greatest in the world of customer experience. Make sure you check out our CX Insights report. You can get that at 4xiconsulting.com/CX Insights Report 2024. Now, I know that's a mouthful, so I will absolutely put that in the show notes for you. So a few notes as we jump in and get started today. I had the privilege of being down in Miami, Florida at Florida International University, FIU, for SHFM, speaking to some of their young leaders and some of their food programs. And I will tell you, FIU is doing it right when it comes to a hospitality program. Talk about just an amazing center of excellence they have going on there with kitchens and lecture rooms, and they learn how to toast coffee and do all kinds of great things as a part of their hospitality program. Even having a full restaurant there that they can really test their knowledge and serve real guests in a real environment to really get experience in the restaurant world. So kudos to them for really taking a really big swing at the future of our hospitality leaders and making sure they are enabled for the future. Really great stuff there. But while I was down there, had the privilege of spending an hour with a really great group of students to talk to them about finding their niche. As they come toward the finish line of graduation, as they're thinking about what they want to do next, as they start to plot their course in the hospitality landscape, thinking about where they might want to go and how they leverage their skills. So I got to spend about an hour with them talking about this, and it was about half of me talking and half of them asking really great questions, but really talked to them a lot about finding their niche, about finding out what they're good at. It's that intersection of kind of what you're good at, what you love to do, and what people will pay for, that kind of thing, and finding that sort of Venn diagram intersection and helping find out where you could take your career path. We also talked about the fact that career paths often, they're not a straight line, right? They kind of zig and zag around. I actually covered my past history, starting in operations, heading out into the C-suite and being the chief experience officer for a large food company, and then starting off on my own and starting my own business, training, consulting, speaking, that kind of stuff. So it was a really great conversation. They asked really amazing questions, and it got me thinking about leadership and the future of leaders, and really the future of leaders in all segments, not just food service, but in all segments. And I also spent some time this past week with a great client that had just really put some huge investment into how they're going to train and develop their leaders into the future. And it, again, continued to inspire me to think this through. So today I want to talk about this kind of evolving landscape of leadership development, because remember, how leaders treat teams, how they develop them, how they select them and enable them is how they're going to treat guests, customers, and consumers. And that's going to be, at the end of the day, the perception of your brand and your service. So this is something that we absolutely have to get right. But if we focus on these crucial trends, how leaders get trained, how they get developed, how they get enabled and inspired, it's going to really help us figure out where we should be putting this increased emphasis. How do we think about empathy and adaptability and time management, communication, all these things that really do make up great leaders. Don't get me wrong. I sort of come down to the Steve Jobs camp sometime of leaders need to be able to put a hammer to a nail. They need to be able to understand how to do the thing, but they also really do have to be enabled with these exceptional soft skills and these abilities to facilitate and bring people along, develop and inspire all the way through to the finish line of the product if they want to have an organization that's going to be very guest-centric, very customer-focused, very people-driven. It really will take that. So we're going to talk about future-proofing your business here today. And again, you can't everything proof, but you can look around the corner a little bit. You can find those practical strategies. You can figure out ways to keep people center stage, have leaders that are ready to rock and roll, and that will set you up to really kind of work around everything that's going to happen, because things are going to happen, right? If we think about the economy, we think about the political landscape, we think about this, that, and the other, the global trends, things change. It's the big constant, as they say. So having leaders that are really ready to deliver is going to be a huge part of everything proofing your business. So it comes down to understanding right at the beginning that leadership training has to evolve. The modern workplace is changing. It is absolutely continuing to change. Remote work, no remote work, hybrid work, shifting employee expectations, again, these global challenges, and really needing these leaders who are going to be flexible, they're going to have a high EQ, be very emotionally intelligent, and they're going to be proactive. And I get it. Proactive gets thrown around just as the word, it's the phrase that pays. But it really is all about being ahead of the curve, not always being reactive. And these traditional leadership models, they're based on hierarchy and their authority. And I get that. And at the end of the day, somebody has to be in charge. And I think we all understand that. But really, this idea of having this collaborative, coaching-based approach is really showing huge dividends out there. But ultimately, companies that don't invest in leadership development are going to continue to see disengaged team members, huge turnover, and really weak customer experiences. So that's no good for a brand or for an organization. So let's talk about this a little bit. So the first trend that's out there is this idea of leading with empathy. So empathy, again, remember, it's not about agreement. It's not about sympathy. It's about understanding. That's the word that really pays when it comes to empathy. It's about understanding. Empathy builds trust. It's going to strengthen morale. It's going to boost engagement. Team members want leaders who understand them, who can put themselves in their shoes, who can support them and not just bark and give orders. Leaders who demonstrate that kind of empathy, they're going to see higher team performance. They're going to see a lower burnout rate because, again, you're anticipating things. You're really thinking about that employee journey. And customers will always benefit from this. Remember, employees who feel valued, they deliver better customer experiences, period, full stop. The data shows that. Just remember, really well-treated employees treat guests really, really well. Now, if you think about how organizations are doing that, so, Salesforce has invested in EQ training. Microsoft has really thought about shifting their leadership training toward emotional intelligence, and it's really driving collaboration and innovation. So these are companies, Microsoft, Airbnb, Salesforce, they are all deeply focused on this. And if you want to think about how to start to get this really into your business lexicon, right? You've got to teach your team to be great listeners. Leaders have got to be great active listeners. You've got to teach them, you got to role play it. You have to make sure they understand that great listeners talk less and listen more. They're not thinking about what they're going to say next, and they're always kind of noting things as they go along, and they're listening to understand, not to respond. They also could do really well by taking kind of that perspective challenge, having leaders step into their employees' or customers' shoes through role-playing exercises. Or if you think about the Disney company, they do a great job about having their leaders step into frontline roles regularly to really get out there and work Space Mountain, to work a food service kiosk, to walk around and sell drinks, or be the person with the little bubble guns trying to sell them all around property. They take the time to step into those roles so they can ultimately understand better what their team members experience every single day. The next piece, think about adaptability and resilience. So we really did learn a lot about that during the pandemic, and I'm sure we all got tired of hearing about resilience during that, but it still matters because things are still changing. Leaders are facing constant change every single day. It could be economic fluctuations, workforce changes, industry disruptions, changes in the market. Things happen. But the best leaders stay agile, they embrace that uncertainty, they see it as opportunity, and they don't resist it. Currently AI is a huge disruptor, and the businesses and organizations and professions that embrace it and lean into it are going to be in much better shape than those that try to ignore it or push back against it. We're just not going to win that fight. So employees are always looking to leaders for that stability. They're looking for leaders who are resilient, who are going to help them navigate crisis with confidence. They're calm during a storm, if you will. People love to work with people like that. Nobody wants to work for a panic monkey. So really understand that employees and team members, they like that sense of security and stability that calm, measured leaders bring, especially in times of adversity. So there's a lot of organizations out there who think about that. So, Google, they're constantly thinking about crisis leadership and running workshops and helping people understand what to do when unexpected things happen. So Netflix is using scenarios and simulations to help leaders practice decision-making under, uncertain moments and training them to pivot quickly and make decisions. So that's pretty interesting, right? Because if you think about it, Blockbuster really did blow it. They did not pivot. They were not adaptable when they had that chance to buy Netflix, and they learned a really hard lesson by not being around anymore. So Netflix does not want to repeat that same mistake. So how can we train that? This is one of those things where, giving people what-if situations and having conversations around it, having these change readiness exercises to teach managers how to shift quickly. There's a lot of different exercises you can do, especially during big leadership workshops and things. We do this a lot. So if you're interested in learning more, reach out. We can absolutely talk about how we can help you and your organization with this whole adaptability training. And then resilience coaching, this mental resilience to help folks manage stress and uncertainty. I always at any given moment have, 3 or 4 folks in my executive coaching program. This is one of the things we always talk about, is this idea of really creating this mental resilience, but always kind of decision treeing, thinking about what ifs, what are the roadblocks, obstacles, potential things that are happening, and how are you going to manage that and what are you going to do about it? So you've already sort of started to address problems before they even arise, because you're trying to get to look around the corner and sort of think about with your imagination, what might be coming up, what might be a problem, and what am I going to do about it? So you never get surprised. The next piece to think about is this continuous learning and this growth mindset. So the best leaders, I think you've probably all known these. Think about leaders that you've had in the past that were great. Didn't they love to learn? Weren't they curious? Weren't they lifelong learners who really encourage their teams to do the same? Because those leaders always remember that training isn't a one and done. It's an ongoing process. They're the kind of folks that think that onboarding is the beginning of the journey. The initial training a team member gets is the start of the race, not the end. And employees love to follow leaders like this. Leaders that embrace learning, that encourage them to embrace learning, that give them opportunities to develop. Those are the kind of folks people love to work for. I can remember, this is many, many years ago, I was still in operations, and I was really starting to get interested in the CX, the CX landscape. And I was studying for my CCXP. I was reading everything I could. I was really thinking about how to apply it in my daily work. And I was still an operator at the time, still a long time ago. But I remember going to my very first Disney Institute training session. And I remember sitting down with a very senior leader that I was trying to get funding from. And I remember his name was Dan. And Dan and I had a long chat. I had a really good business case, and I had everything lined out I wanted to do with this learning. And it came with a pretty hefty price tag. But you know what? Dan leaned in and really sponsored me to go to this. He was my advocate. They funded me to go. And I appreciated that, because that was really part of the beginning of my learning journey toward becoming, a CX practitioner, and then now a CX, consultant and speaker. So it was really a powerful thing. And again, the kind of leader that he was is that inspiring kind of leader that we all want to work for. So we think about organizations that are making learning a priority. Google. They've got a policy around this kind of 20% allowing employees to spend time exploring new skills. Deloitte is big into micro learning, and Amazon runs leadership academies with mentorship and hands-on learning. So companies really to think about there. And if you think about how this builds a culture, it encourages leaders to be mentors, to develop mentorship programs and want to coach more junior employees and help them develop a love of learning. And it can make learning a part of a daily routine. So if you think of learning not as this big event, but just as a part of your day, that's a really important thing. And organizations that consider that just a part of doing business, just how things are done, that really does just bring it into the cultural lexicon and make it something that just happens. And then if everyone's learning, and people have passions around different things, what a great chance to set up peer-to-peer learning groups. If you think about it, everyone has an interest and a passion in something. And those folks can bring that passion and teach little mini workshops to others inside of your workplace. So if you're running, let's say, a restaurant, for example, you may have someone whose passion is bartending. And they may do everything they can to learn everything about being a mixologist and that kind of stuff. And they may want to teach and mentor other bartenders, or the person that is maybe a tray runner but is just so into tea or something like that, may want to go off and learn about tea and coffee and then be that sort of champion in your business. Or even more to the point, maybe you've got someone who's passionate about customer service or safety in any business. What a great person to inspire to learn as much as they can and then deliver that back in a peer-to-peer way to those in the workforce there, those on site in your business, and they can bring that word forward. Peer-to-peer learning is a really powerful thing if you can get that rock kind of rolling down the mountain. So the next piece I want to talk about are 2 overlooked skills: time management and communication. So we're gonna dig into these, but they're not incredibly romantic disciplines, but boy, they really can drive the bus on creating great workplace experiences, great employee experiences, and really driving business results. Because if you think about it, leaders juggle so much. There's so many competing priorities out there. Leaders who know how to prioritize and organize their time can really reduce stress, inefficiency, and burnout. It also teaches them how to focus on what matters most, which will lead to better decision making and higher team productivity overall. There's a couple things I lean into here. One of them is the Eisenhower matrix. And Google this because it really is worth it. But what it forces you to do is look at how you spend your time and ask yourself, how important is this and how urgent is this? And you end up with things, for example, on the upper right-hand quadrant, which are very urgent and very important. And so those are the things you do right away. But then you end up with things in the bottom left-hand corner, which are not very important and they're not very urgent. And so those things, you can just delete and get rid of. And so every box has a thing, has a process. So to really force yourself to say, how urgent is this and how important is this is a key way to understand how you're spending your time and where you should be spending your time. The other piece is time blocking. Now, Elon Musk made this famous a few years ago. If you think about time blocking, this is really taking your day and kind of word vomiting or really dumping everything that you think you need to do, everything, no matter how big or small. Then it forces you then to sort of nail it down to the top 3 or 4 things that you absolutely have to get done today. And once you've done that, then you take your day and you pencil in, any calls that you've got, any travel that you might have, anything that's, on the schedule as an appointment. And then you pencil in time for things like lunch and a workout and personal things like taking your kids to soccer practice and stuff like that. You pencil in doctor's appointments, you pencil in time to think and time to work on your strategy. And then you work in the rest of the stuff. So you work in all the priority items that you want to work on. You block out your whole day. And you basically work in sprints through the whole day. And when the time is up on that, you're done and you move on to the next thing. And the reason that matters is if you really crunch yourself, like if you think something's going to take 90 minutes, give yourself an hour. Because there's a certain thing that happens when we have this time delivery, when we have this focus piece around, I only have this much time to do it. And if it's a little shorter than it might ordinarily be, puts a little bit of pressure on. And we will tend to compact the work and get it done in a quicker amount of time if we give ourselves a shorter amount of time in which to do it. So really think about that, because there is that principle that time will expand to fill the work allotted for its completion. This is the reverse of that. Really push yourself to do more in less time, and that pressure will inspire you just to flat out get more done. So give it a try. So this is really important. If you think about it, productivity and being able to prioritize and being able to handle competing pieces inside of the workplace, competing priorities, that's something that makes for a great leader. When you know how to do that, it really does make you really impactful, because folks can always know that you're going to have everything synthesized down into what matters most and how you're going to get it done. And then this piece about communication is so crucial, because once you've done all of that, you have to be able to communicate it to the team. You have to be able to delegate, to give clear direction, to check in as needed, and keep things going without micromanaging, but also without becoming an absentee landlord. So it's one of those things where great presentation skills, being great with the written word, being able to write a really great email, these are all things that you want to teach as a part of your leadership development, because these are the soft skills that will enable people to find success. So teaching people how to use storytelling, to really inspire their team with clear, compelling messages, to coach people on giving constructive feedback, training them to deliver feedback frequently and fairly and with a growth mindset. And then being really great at giving recognition, teaching leaders how to really acknowledge achievement and doing it in a meaningful way so that it's personalized, it's authentic, it's specific, and it's timely. That's how I always remember to give really great feedback. And we have to teach people how to do those things. We have to teach our teams and our leaders how to communicate, how to do great pre-service rallies and pre-shift huddles, how to give great recognition. These are all things that we're struggling with in the marketplace right now, and it will set leaders apart if they can get this stuff right. So if we bring this all together, let's tie a bow on this as we come to the finish line. And by the way, if you're enjoying this podcast, and I sure hope you are, scroll on down, leave 5 stars, say something nice, share it with your friends. You leave us a comment. Help keep Customer Service Academy one of the top podcasts on customer service, leadership, and employee engagement in the world. And thank you for that, folks. But now as we tie this together and we come to the finish line, what are we talking about here? What are the themes? Focus on more hard skills, right? The future of leadership, it's going to be about emotional intelligence, communication, relationship building. Find those personalized leadership development plans. So especially with AI and predictive analytics and things like that, leaders that have that customized learning journey, they're gonna find that they develop much faster, because it's gonna be tailored to their strengths and their weaknesses. So lean in and personalize these learning journeys. Experiential learning is so huge. So we talked a lot about workshops, role plays, opportunities to test, and opportunities to learn, and opportunities to have conversations and dialogue. So it's not just about putting someone in a workshop and just blathering at them, right? Give them a chance to test things. Give them a chance to role play. Give them a chance to have conversations with others and test out their theory and get feedback. So coaching is going to become a huge part of core leadership skills. And instead of managing, leaders are going to need to be trained to coach and empower their teams. So that is a huge part of how leaders are going to win. And then focusing on this idea of resilience. So leadership training's got to include how to manage the stress, how to prioritize, how to really leverage emotional intelligence, put yourself in their shoes to really continue to get better at customer and employee journey mapping. And that's really just about eliminating friction and understanding people in general. So folks, that is our show. Remember, we are still in the middle of the Great Service Comeback, and if you want to learn more about really bringing this kind of great leadership to your organization, head on over to igniteyourservice.com/summits. We are going to be starting some amazing destination and location-based training programs across the country, so head on over and check it out today. Sign up to be notified when they go live so you don't miss your chance to attend. So remember, the best leaders are going to continue to develop their empathy, their adaptability, and this continuous learning mindset. They're going to be great communicators. They're going to be fantastic at giving recognition, and they are going to lead with emotional intelligence. So until next time, I've been Tony Johnson, your customer experience strategist and trainer, reminding you to keep your customers at the center of everything you do, because that's where the most amazing things are possible. Thanks again for tuning in, and I will talk to you next week.
This has been Customer Service Academy Radio with Tony Johnson. Tony is available to speak at your event, meeting, or workshop. Have a powerful customer-focused day.